Okay, so another REIT that is also my favorite but has gone through a lot of changes even though it was founded recently is Fraser Logistic and Commercial Trust. It was founded in 2015 and I have taken notice of it and have been following it since its IPO. So if you look at the name, it says that the sponsor in charge is under Fraser. So it's also considered one of the more stable and safer with a huge sponsor backing them up. At the current price of $1.39, is actually giving a dividend yield of 5.54%. Although the yield is actually higher than Mapletree Logistic Trust, there is a lot of reasons why it is that way. Because it's a newer REIT, and as compared to Mapletree Logistic Trust, which has shown throughout the years that it can last and can perform well throughout this period. That's why Mapletree Logistic Trust has a lower yield. Let's take a look at Fraser Logistic and Commercial Trust portfolio. If you look at this slide, there is quite a few different countries but not as versatile as compared to Mapletree Logistic Trust. Majority of their properties are actually in Australia of 65 properties, while the second place is Germany of 29 properties. When they first IPO'd, they were a pure logistic company. However, after merging with the commercial trust side, it's actually make it into different office buildings and logistics together. If you look at the blue label, it's office and business parks, while the rest is purple color are logistics. Majority of it are still logistics, even though there is some mergers here and there. So there's about 105 properties at an occupancy rate of 96.5%, which is very decent. As you can see from these slides, they actually shows the history of how the improvement of the REIT has go through. So in 2016, they started off at 1.6 billion of asset under management and acquired different logistic properties throughout the years. However, one big thing that happened, which I mentioned before, was during the financial year 2020, where they actually merged with Fraser Commercial Trust to become Fraser Logistic and Commercial Trust. Moreover, rebalancing of portfolio is very important for REITs. For Fraser, one of my favorite thing about them is whenever they divest, they always try to sell it at a premium, which is possible for especially for logistic buildings. So if you look at the slides that is more in-depth with regards to their portfolio, you can see that for logistic and industrial trust, they have consist of 66% of the portfolio, whereas for office and business parks are 24.2% and CBD commercial of 9.8%. If you look at the different categories, they categorize logistic and industrial together, which is the original REIT that is being held. And you can see that the occupancy rate is an amazing value of 100%, whereas for commercial is 91.3%. However, this is not to be feared as commercial REITs are normally around this occupancy rate as well. Next, let's look at their top 10 tenants. If you see these slides, they break down very nicely for us to see. For logistic and industrial tenants, the highest is at 2.7%, whereas for commercial tenants is at 5.1%. For commercial tenants, yes, it's more risky because the top 10 actually consists a higher value of 18.3%, whereas compared to logistics side, the top 10 is actually only 16.4% of their total revenue. However, I feel that this is still a very decent value as compared to some other REITs around. So a few years back, SGX actually changed the rule that allows REITs or companies to give semi-updates rather than quarterly updates. So because of that, Fraser Logistic and Commercial Trust gives a semi-update whereas compared to Mapletree Logistic Trust, they still follow the old system, which is the quarterly update. So because of this, their third quarter is a business update, which honestly I hate it because there is limited amount of information that you can get out of it. However, on the bright side, they actually still provides their debt profile. If you look at their debt profile, they actually are very, very safe because their aggregate leverage is only 29.2% and it is dropping. Moreover, their cost of borrowing, which is the amount of interest they are paying on their loan, is only 1.6%. Moreover, they have 80.6% of the borrowings being fixed. And one of the best things that I liked about Fraser Logistics and Commercial Trust is that their interest coverage ratio is 12.4%, which is insanely high as compared to Maple Logistics Trust of only 4.2 times. So actually, if you look at the interest rate management, which REITs normally would show, every increase in a 0.5 basis points or 50 basis points increase in the interest rate will impact about 5 cents of their DPU, which is very little and means that it's actually a good thing as there's a lot of buffer space for interest rate increase while not affecting their much on their yield. So for Fraser Logistics and Commercial Trust, one of the red flags or risks in my opinion that consists in the REIT is that they are heavily concentrated in Australia. As you know, Australia currency has consistently dropped throughout the years. So this actually will indirectly impact the amount of distribution given to us in SGD. So buying this REIT will have to take into account this factor as well. However, at the dividend yield of 5.54% is actually a very attractive value. Okay, so this next REIT is a very unique REIT. It's not a pure logistic REIT. It's also not a pure data center REIT. It's a mixture of three kinds: commercial, data center, and logistic. It is Ascendas Reit. It has been one of the oldest, if not the oldest REIT that is still in SGX. Currently, at the price of $2.88, they have a dividend of 5.28%. Their dividend is also semi-annual. So let's look at their portfolio. As you can see, of 16.6 billion of assets, they are consist in 4 different countries. Firstly, Singapore, United States, Australia, and United Kingdom / Europe, with Singapore being the majority of the properties involved. So if you look at their different sectors, they have business space, which is the commercial, mixed with the life sciences, following that industrial and data centers, and lastly logistics. So they categorize into 3 sections, with the business space actually taking 47%, whereas logistics takes 25%, while industrial and data centers takes 28%. So if you're a person who likes versatility or versatile properties, Ascendas Reit is a good way to pick. So if you look at their tenants involved, they have 64.3% of their customer base in the attractive sector of technology, logistics, life sciences industry. So this is very important because this shows that these sectors are doing well, and tenants usually that are doing well in these sectors will not move or have the risk of being default. So let's look at their occupancy rate of the portfolio. So if you see, the dark blue line is the latest, which is June of 2022, and yellow, which is the last year of June. And you can see that the occupancy rate in the total sector has been increasing since as compared to last year, which is a good, because as you know, last year was quite bad, especially for tenants as well. So with the slow increase in ramping up of different occupancy in different countries, it's actually a very good sign. Let's look at their financial numbers. So as you can see from this slide, it summarizes all the important values that we have to take into account for a REIT. Their gross revenue increased by 13.7% year over year, whereas their NPI increased by 7% year over year, and the distributable income to be 6.3% year over year. So the DPU increased by 2.8% which is quite decent. As you can see, the number of units also increased by 3.5%. That's why, because of this increase in the number of units, which is the number of shares available, it actually drops the amount of DPU that is able to give. So next, let's look at their debts. As you can see, their aggregate leverage is about 36.7% with the interest coverage ratio of 6.1%. Moreover, their all-in debt cost, which is the amount they are paying for the interest they are paying for their loan, is at about 2.1%. Even though on paper this does not look as good as Fraser Logistic and Commercial Trust values, sometimes it's actually a more attractive because it consists of different properties such as data centers and commercial site and the life sciences site. Moreover, they are actually even more diversified into different countries. So all these factors actually makes it more attractive in a way as well. So if you look at the next slide, it actually shows you how much the DPU is being impacted as the interest rate increase. So based on this chart and this value, you can roughly estimate how much buffer you would like to have in the event if the interest rate increase a lot. And from there, you can calculate what is the appropriate share price to buy to get the attractive yield. Honestly, for Ascendas Reit, the risk is very minimal because the sponsors are under CapitaLand Mall and they have a very diversified portfolio. The only risk I get is the currency itself because they are very diversified into United States, Australia, United Kingdom and Europe. So if the Singapore dollar goes stronger, it will definitely impact on the DPU as well as the interest rate, because when interest rate increases, the DPUs of the REITs will drop. Thus, naturally, the share price of the REITs will drop as well. So take note of that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope through this brief analysis, you could go and spend more time to go and research on the REITs of interest. So from there, you can at least find the appropriate share price to buy at the attractive yield that you feel that should be at. I hope you like this video. Please give me a like, subscribe to my channel if you are interested, and do leave me a comment on things that you would like me to talk about next.